Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Angela, and don't forget to click subscribe if you are enjoying the podcast. It really helps get it out there because I have another amazing guest to share with you. His name is Dr. Albert Bramante, and he is a seasoned talent agent with more than 2 decades of experience in the entertainment industry. He holds a PhD in psychology from Walden University. And additionally, he is a certified hypnotist and NLP practitioner, bringing a unique blend of psychological insight and practical expertise to his work. He's driven by a passion for both the performing arts and the human psyche. He embarked on a mission to empower others to overcome self-sabotage and unlock their full potential. As a therapist, author, and mindset coach who works with artists and performers and everyday people, comforting grief, loss, and emotional blocks, his own path includes navigating the grief of estrangement and the spiritual unraveling that followed. That pain became a catalyst for helping others. And he blends psychology, hypnosis, and transpersonal coaching and has a wealth of knowledge he can share with us today. So, welcome to the podcast and thank you.
Thank you, Angela, for the wonderful introduction. And I'm so happy to be here. It's such a very important podcast that you're doing and a message. And I'm glad to be part of it.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely fantastic to have you here. And I know the listeners are going to really enjoy what you have to share. I think you bring a really unique perspective to all of this. And so I'm anxious to dive in. You've got such a cool background with the creative arts and working with artists, and then also with all of this psychology training as well.
Yeah, I started out, doing the traditional psychology route. I was going to be a clinical psychologist. And that was like my initial, most of my training, I was, towards that. And it really wasn't until I finished my master's degree that I just started to maybe consider that working with creatives. It wasn't until when I was working, I started thought because I did some crisis intervention work after 9/11. So because I'm near New York, so
Mm.
I wasn't there that day, but I was very near the area, and so I was working with doing some grief counseling, a little bit advocacy, crisis intervention, working with rescue workers who were traumatized, also the family members who lost loved ones during that day. And during that time, I started working a lot with creative people. Actors would sometimes come in, and singers would come in, do some acts, entertain the crowds, and provide a little bit of kind of catharsis, a little bit. When it vehicle for catharsis and just like to let go. And it was like something that really moved me, just being around creative people.
Mhm.
And so I pursued a little bit of myself acting. It wasn't really for me, but I enjoyed being, with actors and around creative people. And it was just like it was like my energy and their energy aligned, and it was sort of like these are my people. This is what I really want to be in. Because I definitely appreciate psychology, but I really didn't feel like I belonged when I was around other academics. It was like I can certainly have a conversation. I can certainly on my own, but the crowd, the dynamics of it, the energy wasn't for me. It wasn't like I don't identify
Mhm.
with these people. So, but I identify more with creatives and artists and filmmakers and the like. So that's where I'm going to devote a lot of my energy. It wasn't really till I began my PhD studies that I started really looking at like the areas that we're working now, like imposter syndrome and self-imposed limitations, because my dissertation was looking at self-sabotage, especially in the performing arts space.
Okay, that makes
And that's what got me interested in that area. So that's where I kind of focus a lot now. I still work with actors because what I do primarily as a talent agent, which is what I do by design. So I find work for actors. I find work for them in film, TV, theater, commercial, print, and voiceover. I'm like an employment agent for actors. But the one thing about actors is, as much as it's very exciting field to be in, it's a very competitive industry. It's a very, very overly saturated industry. And so there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of being told no
Hmm.
more than you're going to be told yes. That's kind of like as a given as an actor. And that can add up over time, especially if you're very excited and you go in every audition pouring your heart and soul out and then yet receiving no feedback. Because like in this industry, a lot of times you don't hear anything if you don't get the job, which can be frustrating because it's no news. Okay, is you didn't get the job, and so that can be particularly hard over time, especially doing this a lot of times, over and
Hmm.
over again. So this is where imposter syndrome can come in. This is when that self doubt starts circulating
Right.
in your subconscious mind, and it's like, well, what do I do?
Hmm. And how does one handle that rejection? Because I know a lot of grieving people are told to
Hmm.
get out there, right? Step out of your comfort zone, try something new because you're really building a new identity after especially after you've lost someone really close. You have
Hmm.
to almost rebuild yourself. So, how do you help people handle that rejection? Because it does happen.
Yeah, and you mentioned a great point about grieving, and I think a lot of times when people hear the word grieving, they think it's just a loss of a person, but it also a loss of identity, a loss of even a relationship or a job
Yeah.
can provoke the same reaction because it's like part of that. It's just dealing with loss. So, and this is for the rejection standpoint. I like to reframe it. So, first of all, and when I do this reframe, it's more of taking the personal aspect outside of it. So not taking the rejection personal. So one of the best reframes that I've heard that I've kind of to this day, what I tell people is there's no such thing as rejection. There's only a simple reminder that your services are not needed today.
Mm.
And it takes a little bit of that, if you can really internalize that, the sting away, the pain away, because it is over time like you're grieving because you're maybe it's a job you wanted so bad. Now it'll never be possible that you're going to get it.
Right.
And over time, that can be grieving. And I think a lot of times when people give advice to those that are grieving, I like to think of it like great intentions, maybe not the best advice, but great intentions. Because telling a grieving person put themselves out there,
Mm.
they may not be ready. And everybody grieves in a different way.
For sure.
It's almost like an individual signature. So the only thing I would say is as long as you're honoring yourself and honoring where you're coming from and honoring your pain, because it's not like something, oh, I'm just going to get over it and move on.
Hmm.
Grieving is a process. Only that time does make it a little bit easier to manage it, go through it, but it's something that is always going to be there. And it's like the human experience. You're going to grieve. Everybody is at some point.
Yeah.
And it's about learning to manage your life while you're doing it and learning to acknowledge it and go through it.
Mhm. And one of the things that you had written when we were emailing back and forth a little bit is the sacred pause of loss as a doorway into spiritual growth. I love the way you worded that. And I'm all about that, right? That there is
Hmm.
this transformation that takes place when we have to go through something so challenging. And this sacred pause, I really like that. It's not like we're done. Life is over.
Right.
It's a pause. I like that.
And what's interesting is, and this is going to get a little deep, but one of the poems by like John Donne looks at death as just being a pause,
Mm,
not the end, just a pause. Like life is not going to stop. It may feel like it at the moment
right.
when you're going through it that there's no way through it, but there is. There is going to be time where you're going to get on the other side of things and be able to resume at least the activities you've been doing. However, it's still going to be a part of you. And because for me, I lost my grandmother 34 years ago this year. It'll be 34 years. And I still grieve.
Mm,
She was a big part of my childhood and like a second mom to me. She was ill, but it was like a quick illness. So it was like not anything that you can fully prepare for. Well, there's no loss you can really prepare for, but it wasn't something that like my 14-year-old self was like, I'm prepared for. I wasn't. It
mhm,
was a complete, and so it devastated me to a point where I couldn't concentrate for a while. But that was my pause because now I'm able to resume the activities I want to do. I still honor her memory every day. So that's where I think it's like a sacred pause because, the one thing about grieving is it can give you a lot of resilience, it can give you a lot of compassion.
mhm.
And there's a lot of gifts that can be given inside of it, even though it may not seem it at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of widows that I talk to, because they are so dependent, and I think this happens maybe when you lose your parents as well, although I haven't had that experience, but when you're dependent on someone else for certain things, and then you have to step out on your own, there's a level of self confidence that you need to move into that. And
Hmm.
and a lot of self doubts come in, and I know this is a specialty of yours, something that you deal with the actors and everyday people as well. So can you talk a little bit about that? Someone who feels really overwhelmed by self doubt and just isn't, will really just give up on their dreams because they just don't think it's possible.
It's a process. So the first thing is to really just connect to what we overcame. I mean, we're alive, first of all, and we're overcame. So I would say the first thing I would do is focus on, let's look at what you've overcome already,
Yeah.
and let's look at what you can do, and know what you're capable of. And it's going to be a process. It's not like it's an overnight thing. And even going again with loss, whether it's the parents, because I know people, my parents, when they lost their parents, they had a hard time with it. Even though they were grown and very mature, I think it's okay to feel that. And it's okay to sit in there and not to try to, because I think a lot of times, not therapists mainly, but I think a lot of times people who are not familiar with grief try to come in and try to fix the situation,
Mhm.
which is not the thing to do. We have to sit with it for a while. So I think what I like to do is focus on your achievements, focus on what you've come. And most people, when they look at things objectively, are even pleasantly surprised, like, well, I really overcame this, and this. And then I can start to link it into future. See, you
Mhm.
got this.
Right.
One day at a time is also another thing too. Because especially a lot of times with grief, there's that hopelessness about the future. Like, I don't know, I'm going to manage it. My life is going to change, and that is true. The life is going to change. It's not going to go back. Because also when you grieve, when you lose somebody, you also lose an identity too.
Mhm.
You are now a wife or a husband. That's gone, and sometimes the circles that you were with maybe ending too, like the deceased friends or family
Mhm.
may not may distance themselves. Not all the time, but it can happen. So There's multiple losses that kind of have to that are dealing with not just the simple things.
Yeah.
And then also with grief is it compounds. So whatever other losses you've experienced are now coming back now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so that's why everybody grieves differently. There's no set time. It may take a while for us to constantly be looking at the same things.
Mm-hmm.
And then just focus tomorrow. Get what do you need to get through tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about next week. Don't worry about next month. Just worry about how are you going to deal and work with tomorrow? What do you need to do?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it really depends. Everybody has their own beliefs of what happens if there's a person still there. I like to meet the person where they're at. If they're convinced that their loved one is present with them, then we'll go with that.
And I think we each kind of develop our own truth around that. I know mine has morphed over time. If I think about what I thought about death as a child, it's completely different now. I think over time we adopt things that fit our own truth. I like that you work with people with where they are with that.
Yeah, just gotta meet the people where they're at. But the main any type of self doubt, it's taking things slowly at a time and not trying to think months and years be too future orientated.
Right.
Okay, what do you need at the moment? And again, whether it's coping grief or just trying to get through the next week with auditions or anything, what do you need today? And what do you need tomorrow? And then just plan on that and just take it one day at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. A person can get really overwhelmed thinking, I do this all the time. I'm trying to pre plan something that I can't pre plan, and I get overwhelmed by it all rather than just
Right.
taking a step and another step. So it's good to have that reminder about that. And in your book, you have certain techniques that you share with people about raising their self esteem. And I'm interested in that as well, because I know for a fact that often a hit like a big loss can really shatter that. And
Hmm.
could you share a couple of those techniques?
Well, the one thing I would say is the company you keep. So I think it's important to be involved in some type of group setting where you're connecting with other successful people or other people that are going to be supportive of you and that are also working toward the same goal. Because just sometimes just as simple as connecting, because we're connectors, we're social animals. So we
Mhm.
really function well when we're connecting with people. So that's the important thing. Now, I deal with mainly self, like I was talking about generalities. So it really depends. It might be a little different with loss, but I do prescribe doing something uncomfortable, but that's more for general lifting of general self-esteem. What I mean by doing something uncomfortable, I'm not talking about doing something like completely outlandish, but doing something differently. Because a lot of times when we do something differently, our brain will sometimes code that as uncomfortable. And the important thing is to step into that space and be okay with uncomfortableness. And the same thing is with grief is being okay with there's gonna be days where it's gonna hurt. There's gonna be days where it's gonna be a little painful. You know, there's days where it's gonna sting. And that's okay. It's take that day, work process through that.
Mhm.
And rather than trying to fight it, just work with it. Let the pain teach you. I know that's a little hard sometimes, but it's like a lot of times there can be lessons there.
Mhm. Yeah.
And but the important is to do some actions. Now, a lot of people grieve differently. Some people like to be alone, and some people really have to be involved. Like for me, I need to be doing something.
Yeah.
At least or be with people.
Well, and the interesting thing is that I'm not that person. So I shy away from groups. My whole life, I,
Okay.
almost intimidated by the fact that I would have to be in a large group. But what I did discover through my grief
Mhm.
is that I need it. And it,
Yeah.
it was just my own introverted nature and shyness and low self esteem that was keeping me from interacting with others. I was forced to do it. I was a school principal, but it exhausted me. And when I realized that setting into those social situations would exhaust me and I would need that time alone to recharge my batteries, when I figured that out, it was a game changer for me because I realized I needed a balance. I needed to get out, but I
Mhm.
also needed that time to rest too.
Absolutely. And it's not about the quantity of people or the quantity of groups. It's just the quality. Even if it's one or two people that you are can connect with, I think that's great. But I think, especially when it comes to grieving, again, everybody's their own way. What I often say is, don't at the same time, you don't want to shut yourself out off from anybody,
Hmm.
because there may be sometimes a temptation to do that too,
Right.
slight temptation to say, okay, I'm just not going to talk to anybody, ever again, and I'm just going to go on my own little world. Now, if there's couple days where you need to do that, then that's what you need to do. But you need to listen to yourself and treat yourself well, and whatever that need is, kind of honor it for that day. But at the same time, I wouldn't deal with that because we do need to be connected with other people. And we saw this a lot during the pandemic in 2020 during COVID.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't may be surprised, but that is grieving. When people are like, I wish things were times that's grieving because we're in a new situation. The old way of life, it's going to change. It's not going to be. And that was the whole thing too. Like where we're hearing, like I just I want to go back to the old times. Well, that's not happening anymore.
Hmm.
We're now what we can do is definitely open back up again and be able to socialize with people again. But it's still not going to be the way it was prior to COVID. And so there's that bereavement there. But what we also saw, which was a secondary trauma, obviously with that was the isolation,
Hmm. Yes.
and that's how we saw a high rate of depression rates growing up, substance abuse, alcoholism, drug use, because there was that isolation. Now, yes, you could have made an argument that we needed to be safe, but there was also a cost to that, the human connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's interesting that now I'm doing a podcast and I have a sport group and I'm doing all these interesting things. So it's just growing and learning and stepping into things and trying it and seeing what you think about it. And so, self esteem is a big one for me because I think it's something that I've always struggled with and
Hmm.
just self worth.
Of course.
It's and I know with artists, I'm sure you've dealt with this before, and that whole fear of failure that I'm going to do it and it's going to be wrong and everybody's going to leave and all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
the important thing is even if you have that setback or that disappointment or something doesn't work out, you could take that failure and reframe that as feedback
Ah.
and at least celebrate the fact that you tried. You made that attempt. You did something. Okay, it may not have been the outcome you wanted or didn't go, may not have went in that direction that you wanted to go in, but at least you did that. You
Mm.
made that effort, and that should be celebrated. The effort that you made.
And we don't do that enough, do we? Go back and look at what we've done and celebrate our success.
Hmm. No, because we're so focused a lot of times, and then the bias of the negativity, which is like what went wrong instead of what went right.
Right. Right. And I think we define success in really crazy ways. Like you say, sometimes getting through a day is a success.
Oh yes, it really is because you did it, you made it, and that's especially important for those that are having tough days. Like, look, you got through it, and you'll get through it again tomorrow. You just need to honor yourself and do what you need to do, whatever is needed, and don't be afraid to reach out to people for support if that's
Mhm.
something you want.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that whole piece of, just walking through one day at a time. I know I always tried to look into the future, and I was always afraid that there would be no end to it. I would just be living these horrible days every day.
Hmm. And that's what we call like doom and gloom of that
Mhm.
tunnel vision, which can sometimes happen when you're dealing with a major setbacks. And that's a common feature of, I don't want to say complete depression, but in a depression state where you start to feel hopeless, where it's like there's gonna be no end to this. All mankind has survived, and we went through periods of darkness, and we've come out. I was gonna say the mantra is really, as hard as it is. Sometimes even just looking in the mirror every time you pass by, and just say, "I want to be okay. It's
Mm.
gonna be all right."
Yeah. Yeah. And I will attest to that because I actually did have a mantra that was very much like that. I'm okay. Going to be all right. Just keep saying that all over and over again. I'm just on a journey, creative journey, that kind of thing. And you say it over and over until you believe it. Because at first you just don't.
Right.
Yeah. So, could you explain how the concept of the happy file from your book can be used to boost self esteem?
Well, the happy file is, in a sense, a form of gratitude journal. So, what you do is number one, listening, of course, things that make you happy, but all your little achievements, your small wins, you document.
Mm,
As small as they are, you document those wins.
okay.
And then,
So, similar to gratitude.
yeah. And then when you're having moments of self doubt or that just having a rough day, pull out that file.
Mm, yeah. And revisit that. Very cool. Okay. I'm sure people have got a sense of where you're coming from and the practicality in the ideas that you have and the way that you work with people. So, how could people get a hold of you or how could they find your resources?
Well, you can go to my website, albertbramante.com, but you can also follow me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn and I do post a lot of stuff. And feel free to reach out to me. I'm definitely open to have a conversation. And if there's a way I can support you in any way, let's talk.
Wow, that's great. Is there anything else you wanted to share that we didn't get to that maybe some advice for people or some encouragement?
I would say just, again, take it day by day and just know no matter what happens, you're going to be okay.
And I think that's the whole precipice of me doing a podcast, you getting on the podcast is to give people that hope and to let them know that there is an end to this. It's not going to be terrible forever and that there are ways to move through. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Well, thank you, Angel, for having me on the show.
I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for watching and bye for now.